Hey, and thanks for joining us on this week's episode of For All Things Lexington, the only show dedicated to Lexington, South Carolina, and where a spade is always a spade. Here we'll talk to and about people, places, groups, things to do, and places to go in and around Lexington, South Carolina. I'm your host, Angela Barrett, and this is For All Things Lexington. Brought to you in part by GervaisStreetBridge.com, Columbia's most unforgettable free-to-list business directory.
For All Things Lexington has been brought to you by the Lexington County Museum. They collect, they preserve, and they present. Book your tour or event today at lexingtoncountymuseum.org. Lexington County Museum, I'll bet you didn't know.
Hey guys, and thanks for joining me today. Today I have J.R. Fennell, who is the director of the Lexington County Museum. Thanks for coming.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So, first and foremost, I understand you were a graduate of USC. Go Cox.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. When did you come to the Lexington Museum?
So I started in July of 2007, and so it's going on 17 years now.
Yeah. Now, where were you before that?
So I had worked at various other kind of institutions around, but I came pretty much straight from graduate school. So I was at USC, did my undergrad and graduate there, but did have the opportunity. I worked at the Confederate Relic and Military Museum for 2 years. Worked at McKissick Museum. I did some construction work down in Charleston, trying to get some historic preservation experience, restoration, and some various other kind of areas around town. Yeah.
I will have to say, being in Lexington now 30 plus years, probably going on 35, 36, I think the Lexington Museum is probably one of the most underused resources that we have.
Yeah.
How do we change that?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and by going on podcasts like this, I think is one way. We've tried to really get out more in the community and do, so we now have a presence at Kids Day, which, is great for us helping to reach families.
Right.
And we also, we have had presences around the county, the Labor Day festival up in Chapin. We have done Juneteenth, both in Irmo and here in Lexington. We have just tried to get our names out there. Anybody who wants us to present around to community groups, church groups, whatever it may be, if we have time and are available, we'll do it. And we try to have more events at the museum as well, and try to keep these events free as well. So,
and even for the tours and different programs, it's not very expensive. We're talking $5, $10. I mean, we're talking minimal.
Yes.
Probably one of the cheapest things you can't do in Lexington.
Yeah. We try to keep it affordable. Because we want people to come out, we want them to have a good time. And, again, we're very fortunate to be county funded, so we don't want to gouge the taxpayer or anything like that. Yeah.
Sure. Now, for people who haven't been to the museum, it's not like you go down to the Columbia Museum and it's one building. These are very interesting and detailed, but they're multiple buildings.
Yeah.
All right, explain to me the winter and summer dairy, is it building?
Yeah.
Okay, so I saw that because it's been a long time since I've even been, but and things have probably changed. I need to go back through. So tell me about those.
Yeah. Well, just to say a funny story, it's happened a couple times now where I've given tours to people around it. We have 30 structures on the site, and we'll get to the end of the tour, and people will say, well, where's the museum? Because they think of it as a, one
building. Yes.
Yeah. The winter and summer dairies, very fascinating. We're very proud to have a lot of outbuildings that would have been associated with a farm or plantation. So they did not have modern conveniences like we have today. And one of which that, I'm thankful for is refrigeration. And something that, sometimes you don't think about until the power goes out. But
That's right.
We are fortunate to have two buildings, a winter dairy and a summer dairy, and they were used to store milk. And so the summer dairy, it's basically a building that's kind of, on stilts. It's on it would have been logs originally, but we, have it there to display. And basically they would have taken water from the well and put the milk in it in the summertime to try to keep it cool.
Ooh.
Yeah. And then in the winter, it's a very cool building, but it's got slats. And so the slats are open, and on a very cold day, it would just allow that cold air to come in and try to keep the milk cool that way.
Yeah. I understood the winter much better than a summer because it gets hot here.
It does. It does.
I don't know that they kept a lot of milk.
Yeah.
From spoiling, but maybe they figured it out better than I can imagine.
Food poisoning did happen. I will say that. Yeah.
Now, tell you about there's the Leapart Harmon House.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just picking out some of the few out of the 30 buildings there, but
yeah. So the Leapart Harmon House, that was the last building that we had moved to the property, and that was in 2004. We were able to move it. And it came from the intersection of Corley Mill Road and Highway 378, just east of the downtown area of Lexington. There's it's right where the TD Bank and Taco Bell are today. So it was built for a man named George Leapart. George Leapart, like a lot of people that settled in Lexington, was a German or Germanic heritage. He owned a sawmill. He was a politician, involved in a lot of different offices, he was very wealthy. And so Leapart Road, if you go down that, maybe trying to beat the traffic on 378,
right.
That was named after him. So he and his wife both died in 1850. His children, I think, had some debts, and there was some arguments over who inherited it. And eventually the Harmon family, a man named James Harmon, who was a dentist, he acquired the property. And his descendants owned it until we were able to acquire it in 2004 and 5.
Yeah. So interesting. And because most of the buildings or all of the buildings were moved from somewhere else.
Yeah, we have
here in Lexington and moved somewhere in Lexington County, not necessarily the town, but and like the Corley Log House. Now, this is one of the oldest documented houses in Lexington. So tell us about that.
Yeah. Historians, good historians are always a little hesitant to say anything with authority because you never know when something else is going to be discovered.
Well, that's why I said documented. We don't know if it's the oldest.
That's right. But so it's very fascinating, I think. It was built 1771 by a man named Lawrence Corley. His name is spelled different ways, and in some cases it was even written down as Lawrence Charles. So I think, the people who spoke English were like, this German, or we don't know what he's saying. But anyway, it was originally built near where the old mill is today in the town of Lexington. It was moved to higher ground up. There's a subdivision up there called Heritage Hills. It was moved there. It was home to Lawrence Corley and his family. He was married first to a lady named Christina Blakely, and then she passed away, and he remarried a lady who she had been previously married. Her husband passed away, and her name was Barbara Derrick Drafts. So when she got married to him, she became Barbara Derrick Drafts Corley. So they are significant because, number one, they're one of the ancestors of all the Corleys in Lexington. And
there's a lot of those.
There's a lot. They did their part to spread the family name. He had 16 children in total.
Wow.
Yeah. And he's also significant because he got a land grant from the colonial government and then the state for basically what is now the town of Lexington. So the land between 12 Mile Creek, 14 Mile Creek was his land. And so he passes away in 1815. His widow, Barbara Dare Drafts Corley, a lot of people called her Granny Corley, I think, because she's kind of grandmother to half the town.
Sure.
She sold 2 acres to the state to build a courthouse and jail, and that's how the town of Lexington got started. That was in 1820, yeah.
Nice. Now, a lot of people, and I don't know that I realized it even, but there is a lot of German heritage here in Lexington. Go into that just a little bit.
Yeah.
Reckon Diddle?
Yeah, no. I took Spanish and not the high school and college. But which kind of does not serve me well here. But
many people thinking.
Yeah. But it's very fascinating. It's something that I could go on for a long time about. But just to kind of give a brief kind of statement. So the colonial government in the 1730s was very worried about basically 2 things. So they were worried about some of the powerful Native American tribes that were out there, the Cherokee, the Creek, and they had just, 15, 20 years earlier had gone through a devastating war with the Native American tribe called the Yamasee, and that kind of, really, hurt their psyche. And so they were scared. And then they were also starting to import a huge number of enslaved Africans to work the rice plantations. And so they were worried about a population imbalance between free and slave. And so they had this land in the backcountry that was pretty much vacant. And so they decided that they would come up with a plan where they would create townships, so open up this land in the backcountry for settlement and try to get in, Europeans. And so they, for this area, kind of honed in on Germans and Swiss Germans and so started to bring them over. So a lot of the big kind of Lexington County names, Corley, Harmon, Kaufman, Shealy, all good German and Swiss German names. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Now, how do you remember all this?
It's amazing to me, just to be honest, because I meet somebody, they tell me their name, and like 2 minutes later, it's gone.
Oh, yeah.
But then I will read something about Lexington history, and it just kind of stays with me forever. So I don't know what.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
So one of the favorite buildings that I think out there when I think of it is the carriage house, because obviously, women, we think of, the princess in the carriage. But what I find interesting about it, it not only kept the carriages out of the elements, but the real purpose was to have the wooden wheels not on the ground so they would not rot.
Yep.
Now, who in this day and age would ever even fathom something? I mean, sure, we think about it with our homes and wood being directly on dirt for termite purposes, but not for rot. And I think that's really, so tell me a little more about that building.
Yeah. So it came, it actually came from the Montz family and, another German, German heritage, but, very fortunate to have it. And yeah, if you could afford it, I mean, you would have had some kind of structure to keep your carriages, maybe some wagons out of the elements. And like you said, I mean, it's something we don't think about, but wagon wheels, of course, were wooden, and a lot of times would have a metal, ring around it. It has a name that I cannot recall at this point, but
there's something he can't recall.
I can't recall. Yeah.
I love it.
But it's very interesting. If you left it on the ground, this would sometimes cause termites to get in it, just general rot. And then if it got wet, sometimes it would expand and contract, and this would cause cracking. This would cause sometimes that metal ring around it to actually, to become loose. And so you didn't want that to happen. You wanted to try to, keep maintenance to the lowest level possible.
Right. But, again, that's just something that when I was going again back over all the buildings over there, I thought, oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't. I mean, who in this day and age would have ever thought about wooden wheels and rot?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Now, the cotton gin building is built up on sticks, I assume logs back in the day. But that was for the horses to be able to get up under.
Yep.
With the cotton.
Mm-hmm.
So they were in a wagon.
Yeah.
So what's the age of this? Where was this building?
Yeah, so it's about 1850-ish. Yeah, sometime around then, and came from just south of Chapin, basically where Timberlake is today. Came from right there. Yeah, and these cotton gins, they were owned by local landowners, and so they would have been sometimes around the county. And then people would take their cotton to be ginned there. They could pay a fee. And so you're exactly right. It's, I think, very cool, very unique. They have gears that would have been basically run by horses or mules. And, that's why it's kind of off the ground like that. There's actually one, if you go to Kings Mountain State Park in the upstate, that they have a cotton gin building that came from Lexington County as well.
Oh, wow. So how was the actual cotton gin at that time?
Yeah, see, they had a machine, the cotton gin that was invented by Eli Whitney, and basically it would separate, the seeds from the fibers itself, and really that's kind of what led to, the cotton explosion with the plantation economy and all, because it became very, much more easier to grow cotton and process it.
Right. But the horses were the ones that were actually turning the gin at this time.
Yeah.
Because before that, it was by hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. So there were probably some that maybe could have used steam, maybe closer to rivers and that sort of stuff. But, horsepower was the way to go in the mid-1900s.
Right. Now, you guys will have different programs, all of them being children programs.
We do. So we, some of our events are more kind of adult focused, but the free programs that we offer during the week are children's programs, and we offer those to homeschool groups, private schools, public schools, just any Boy Scout groups, Girl Scout groups, any kind of children's groups like that. We're willing to do. Yeah.
And I think I saw one called The Kitchen.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. What's that?
Yeah. So. It's we think it's great because we feel like food and food preparation or something that kids can relate to.
Sure.
And so basically we just teach the children about food preparation in the 19th century, about how butter was made, about how corn was shelled, that sort of thing. And really just kind of, compare and contrast, see how things are different now, see how they're the same in some cases. One of the most interesting things I think for me is, they had pest control problems just like we do. And so they, didn't have pest control companies to come and spray.
Sure.
So they would use different techniques. And so we've got some examples of that to show people as well.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. Because y'all got about like 30 different little programs for the kids, right? And they can come in and choose like one, and it takes about 30 minutes to an hour?
It takes, generally, we work with groups, but generally about an hour. And so if anybody's interested in, scheduling one of these programs, just give us a call, and we'd love to put you on the books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now there are, I know different events that you said kind of cater to adults. I know one of them, I know is coming up, but you have it more than one time a year, I think.
Yes.
The Murders and Mystery Dinner. Tell me about that, because I've always wanted to come and I've never been able to.
Yeah, so we started this probably maybe 9 years ago, and it's been a fantastic success. But basically, we take people, we start now at the Ice House Amphitheater, and we tell, kind of give an introduction, tell a few stories, and then split the group and take people on a tour of Main Street, where we talk about the history of the town, history of the buildings on Main Street, and then tell some of the crazy sometimes outrageous stories that occurred in and around Main Street. Yeah.
So give me one example of the crazy mystery story.
All right. So my favorite is it happened in 1919. And so April 6, 1919 to be exact. There's a building on Main Street now. There's a law office there, Walker Law Firm.
Okay.
But back in that time, it was a pharmacy, and it was owned by a man named R.B. Harmon, Rice Harmon. He decided on April 6, 1919 to open up. And the problem was that it was a Sunday, and the state had recently passed blue laws regulating, business on Sunday, and said you can't do it. So he opened up. Town police officer comes by, sees he's breaking the law, comes inside and says, Rice, what are you doing? You can't be open today. You're breaking the law. And he said, well, I've got customers. They need medicine. They need help. Can't say no. And so this went back and forth until it apparently became a fist fight. And so the newspaper article about it said that Rice was a small man, so he felt threatened by the police officer. And so he apparently thought it was a good idea to take his pistol out.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. So he took his pistol out. He took 3 shots at the police officer. He missed all 3 shots. The police officer then, I think when he came out of shock, took his pistol out and didn't miss. He hit Rice in the leg. So the sheriff rushed to the scene, placed the police officer under arrest, I think just to kind of sort things out. They rushed Rice to the hospital where they saved his life. No charges are brought because of this, but what makes it my favorite story is a few years later, Rice Harmon, the pharmacist, ended up marrying the daughter of the police officer that shot. And so I've always said Thanksgiving had to be a real awkward time, Brevin.
Yeah, right. That can go either way. That's right. I know you have the Great Outdoors Day, I think.
Yeah.
I know that's coming up as well. What's that about?
So we have a part-time employee, John Myers, who's a big birder. He's in the Audubon Society. And so we wanted to do something to kind of bring in more STEM stuff and kind of talk about science and nature. And we do, we're very fortunate to have a garden on site, and we do try to attract birds. But basically, this is an event where we will have some presenters who will talk about birding, talk about how to attract birds, how to basically, kind of just more about nature, I guess. And so this is perfect for kids, and it's something we're really proud of. It's going to be on March 23rd, Saturday, March.
But it's not just for kids.
No, adults can learn, quite a bit as well. Mm-hmm.
Now, what are some of the other maybe events that you guys have that are more geared towards the adult?
Yeah. So one thing that is great for people of all ages is our spring open house, and that's going to be on Sunday, May 5th. And it is a fantastic time to come out. It's free, and we kind of focus more on historic crafts. So we will have a blacksmith on site.
Oh.
I think we're going to have pewter casting, soap making, lard rendering. We're going to have hopefully a basket weaver on site as well. It's really to learn more about some of these crafts that, we don't really have a need for anymore, but, we're vitally important at the time.
Yeah. Well, yes. I mean, about the only time I guess you can see basket weaving is down in Charleston.
That's right.
Days.
Yep.
Which is fascinating.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely. Now, how can people be more involved with the museum by helping you out, but also helping them as well?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we, first of all, I would say an easy way to just kind of stay up to date. If you're on social media, we have a Facebook page and we have an Instagram page. It's a great way to keep up to date with the events that are going on, the activities. We also try to post interesting news articles, tidbits, some very cool pictures that we have. It's a good way to, follow us that way. We also, of course, have a website. It's a great way to keep up with our events, our calendar of events. We have a newsletter that we send out every other month.
Strangely named Saxgotha something.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I'm confused, but
Yeah. So I came up with that a long time ago, but Saxagotha used to be the name of the township that became Lexington.
I gotcha.
Yeah, the Dispatch was the name of one of the early newspapers, and I kind of combined it.
I gotcha. That makes sense now. But I was like, what does the church Saxgotha have to do with the county museum? Because it's new.
Yeah, that's right.
Compared to other stuff.
But yeah, so those are great ways. We also, if people are interested in volunteering, we have a space on our website where you can do that. We also have a nonprofit group, the Friends of the Lexington County Museum, that helps us raise funds. And so if you're interested in joining that, we'll pay for some of the restoration projects that we need, replacing a roof or, helping repair porch, things like that. And it's a great way to get involved, help the community, and get to know a good group of people.
Yeah. Now, there was something I was going to ask you about. Oh, you have an event the third Thursday of every month, right? At the library?
Tuesday, yeah.
Third Tuesday. Okay. Third Tuesday of every month. And you talk about the history of Lexington.
Yeah, yeah.
And so is it like a series type form, or it's just random people come and ask questions?
Yeah. So we start at 6:30 the third Tuesday of every month at the main library, and so I have a topic that I will talk about, a different topic every month. So this month, February is the month when Sherman's Union troops entered Lexington County during the Civil War as part of his march. And so this month we're going to talk about the Civil War history of Lexington County. But we do different topics. Last month I talked about the colonial history of Lexington County. But it's a great time. I mean, the free presentation, come out. I try to make it interesting and not boring, and just names and dates, that sort of thing. And it's a good way to come out and learn. And then if you have specific questions you want to ask, I mean, at the end, I take questions. And so, I'd be happy to answer any history questions that you have.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. Now, did you always know you were a history guru, buff, I mean, whatever you want to call it? I mean, you're always interested in history?
Yes. Yeah. I remember as a kid, I grew up in Walterboro, and we'd go to Charleston and just seeing, the historic downtown. And then my mom every summer would basically just take us to the library and say, pick out some books, and so I would always.
You enjoyed those trips.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember those trips, and I don't think I enjoyed those very much.
I understand.
Yeah, well, great. That is fantastic. And you said you grew up in Walterboro.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a very big town.
No. I never thought I'd see it on the New York Times and, the national news with the Murdoch stuff.
Oh,
yeah.
How could we forget about that? That's right. There's a piece of history for you.
Oh, like, yeah. You definitely have murder mystery there.
There you go. Absolutely. Maybe a few. Yeah. Well, thank you so very much for all your great information, and go to the Lexington County Museum website, which is
the LexingtonCountyMuseum.org. Yep.
Great. Phenomenal. Well, thanks again.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Thanks for hanging out with us today, and we hope you enjoyed the show. If you'd like to be a guest on the show or have a person, business, idea, an event that Lexington needs to know more about, email me, local@forallthingslexington.com. That's the number 4, y'all.
For All Things Lexington has been brought to you by the Lexington County Museum. They collect, they preserve, and they present. Book your tour or event today at LexingtonCountyMuseum.org. Lexington County Museum, I'll bet you didn't know. and by Angela Barrett at HomeMattersSC.com. Building on what matters to you.